Hello and welcome back to Wario Land 3. This is Wario Enchanted, and today we'll be continuing with the new ability we got last time, which is of course the ability to throw enemies. So let's head to the first of the levels we've unlocked a new thing in, now that we can throw enemies around. Which is the tidal coast. I do like how some areas you can kind of tell what's going to change later on in the game. Like, for example, the tidal coast has that very... Yeah, this part's really annoying, trying to pick these guys up so you can throw them into that series of blocks. It took so many tries to avoid getting hit by those flames. But you have to be quite careful as well, because it throws on a slight arc, so it's very easy to accidentally miss the blocks, or like hit the blocks at a weird angle. Yeah, these bubbles were a nightmare. I hate dealing with these bubbles. I've cut out so much of me getting trapped in them and floating all the way back to the top of this shaft. You know, you have the ability to throw enemies. It's quite a fun thing. It's just that particular... this is quite interesting because you have to use both this move, and then you also now have to actually use the bubble because you can't just swim up there because the current goes down. So now we actually have to use the bubble, which is quite a clever little thing. I quite like how first you have to avoid it, and then you actually need it. What I was trying to say actually was, you can tell that there's that weird purple rock at the tidal coast, and you can kind of tell something's going to happen there. I mean, it's too obvious not to. It's kind of like the dark outline bookcase and Scooby-Doo things where you can know it's going to move. But of course, we've got the key, and now we have to go further down because there was more of a passage, and that's generally the way these kind of keys and chests work. Is often the keys like earlier in a particular challenge, and then the chest is at the end of the same challenge. It's not always like that. Sometimes it's separate challenges, but for the most part, it works this way. And sometimes you end up going the wrong way, having to deal with the boss first, and then you end up just like, oh, where's the key now? I've got the chest, but no key. Well, they're never too far away. It's not too difficult to work out. And this is why I learned something quite important here as well when I use this little guy. Yeah, I got him through the thing, but the problem is I have a lot of trouble picking him up because of this very tiny little area, and because he's on this side of it, it's kind of hard to get, like, I should have thrown him back to the blocks, but I didn't think. So this is just me clearing a bit more room by, like, leaving the room and emptying again, and now I'm going to use this guy to break more blocks. Now we have more room to maneuver. It makes it much easier. You always have to be kind of careful with the ability to throw enemies, because you have to make sure you're throwing them in the right directions and not accidentally knocking them back. So of course we'll need this guy to get to the chest as well, so we'll need to keep bringing him further up. One of those annoying things when you accidentally kill an enemy without meaning to when you try to do something else with it. But it doesn't happen very often. Now we have a large foot. Let's see what this jade foot actually does. Drop kicks the island. And releases some rocks from the volcano's base. Makes a cave and steep canyon. And it drains the stagnant swamp. Which is quite interesting. That actually reminds me of that, no, that PS2 game of Klonoa 2, that was it, which has a similar kind of progression at one point with a large ocean or lake area completely draining. But if we do anything relating to the foot, we're going to keep doing these things with the throwing things. And something quite fun with the throwing power is sometimes it involves an object like this. It's one of the few things that sometimes doesn't actually involve an enemy at all. It just involves like an item they have to carry around, which is an interesting little way of playing with it. It's an interesting little twist on things. But of course you have to get this thing all the way across the bridge. Because remember when we were here last time, we saw some breakable blocks that we couldn't use. So we have to get this all the way across for them. And here they are. It's always worth bashing into a wall wherever you can, because you never know when there's going to be like a hidden little area. And yeah, I really hate these bears in closed locations. They're really annoying to deal with. Now, that's what these alcoves are for, though, to avoid getting hit. But they're just such a pain. It's so hard to, like, because, like, it's so hard to get a, like a bead on them because they move so quickly when throwing their ice at you. It's very easy to accidentally get caught up in it and get like hit without meaning to, because you don't quite react in time. I'll be glad I did that. Because look how many coins I have now. Yeah, I failed this a few times, and these games are getting very expensive now. So I'm going to have to start being quite careful with my coins from the future. I'm even doing a grinding session at one point to just grind for coins. But now we've cleared the minigame, so we can... well, we can get to the chest at least. But we still have to find the key. So yeah, I was just going up here to make sure there wasn't anything I was missing, and no, it's just the chest up there, so... let's try and find that key, shall we? Which could be anywhere. So it's quite lucky that I get it right pretty quick. Because it's quite close to this area, because you wouldn't expect it to be too far away. And I do like sometimes as well that even if the key and the chest are quite far away apart from each other, you can often tell where they're linked because they have similar obstacles, and we'll see that a bit later. For now though, trying to throw him without getting zapped by that little spider thing is quite annoying. But the key is quite simple, it's just here. Stupid little spear face. Something that's quite interesting though, that a lot of the obstacles we've been getting here are not obstacles, but a lot of the power-ups we've been getting that unlock parts of levels are actually quite disruptive, like draining the swamp and making a hole in the canyon and things like that. And yeah, that was, I think it was that little thing you get with Pokemon Yellow, that little Pocket Pikachu thing. It's like a cute little reference. So here's the last area. We have to, of course, get a guy over here. But we can't throw these big guys. Yeah, I was making sure it was the red key I'm looking for. The water's still black as well. We can't really do much with the black water. Because while it's black, even if there are doors down there, we can't see them. You have to be quite careful, like remember about how the slipping mechanics work. Because it can be kind of easy to forget exactly how the slipping mechanics work in this particular game, because it can be a little bit like, you have to be quite careful with it. Otherwise it might end up slipping off. Because you kind of glide a little bit like to the edge of the platform, but not quite. It's a bit like tricky to get the hang of, but you just have to kind of get the feeling of it right. But luckily, when these bear things actually die when falling off a thing by falling into the water, they don't respawn after death when they leave the screen. They only respawn if they just leave a ledge, and then you kind of don't actually kill them. So it can be quite handy that in this area at least, you're kind of clearing out all the bears. It means you have to deal with them. Being careful here, because I remember there being an issue sometimes where I accidentally exit a level without meaning to by going to a already open exit. So I'm being quite careful here to not stand still in front of an exit to avoid that happening. I don't know if it does happen. It hasn't happened for a while, or what triggers it, but yeah, here's the object for this level. And as we saw as well, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes you just get an idea because the different obstacles that you need to use to get the key in the chest have similar things in common. Like in this case, there's two areas where there's just blocks that are destroyable by throwing things. Those blocks and the ones at the beginning. So you can kind of guess that those blocks are the relevant things that are related to each other. Because it's the same basic puzzle, it's just the key is, which is obviously that first one, is much closer. So of course you have to do a lot less, but you also have to throw up in this case, which is quite interesting too. It's kind of playing with different powers in different interesting ways, like in this case making you throw up as well as horizontally, or in that one area making you kind of carry an enemy all the way up a series of obstacles. It's always finding a fun way to kind of like make you get good at using the new ability that you've got. So yeah, now we have to take it all the way back to the beginning, which is a little bit trickier, but again, we just have to kill these bears to get them out of the way. Then it's just about remembering how the slipperiness works and not screwing up. I just sort of point out the whole thing with some of these power-ups being quite destructive, because a lot of the time that was embarrassing. A lot of the time in these kind of games, often you're like getting keys to open doors and things like that. It's relatively benign, but in this game, a lot of the things, except for like the plant and things like that, end up making the world a little bit worse. Like, you end up unleashing a bunch of snakes all over the place, and yeah, that sort of thing, where like you end up breaking parts of the scenery and kind of physically destroying the world in some ways. But this is also quite a fun way of learning these snowman blocks, because we can't break them like this. So we have to become this snowball Wario. Maybe that'll break it, because, you know, it's a snowball now, and it's a snowman shape. Let's try using this, shall we? Nope, not quite. We're on the right track, though. We actually have to work out that there's another slope here, and that's there for a reason. Can't build a snowman, so that's not the point. And we can't just walk into them as a snowman thing, that's not how it works. It's not like there's a snowman and snowball thing. We're still having to learn how this power works, which is always quite interesting when it's the more unusual powers that have less obvious... But yeah, now we get an idea. If we roll for long enough, we get big, and then we can break the snowman blocks. It's like, it's not obvious how it works, but it's logical, and it's kind of fun. And it really fits the whole cartoon physics aspect of the game. And it's quite clever how it makes you figure that out as well. Because sometimes the games are all overly abstract, like that one area with, like, we had to roll through the invisible breakable blocks as the yarn. I thought that was a huge pain to figure out, and I couldn't figure that out myself at all, because it's not very well telegraphed. But here, they teach you pretty effectively. Now we've got a teapot, which is kind of cute. So we've added some extra things in those 3 levels that we saw with the foot. So we'll come back to this next time as we explore those 3 areas. The cave, the swamp, or what was the swamp, and the volcano. Goodbye. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and check out my Patreon as well. Speaking of, thank you to James Rossi for supporting me on Patreon.